My name's Lawrence, I'm 37. I had what most people would call a quiet life. Nothing fancy, just normal. I had a wife, 2 kids, a small house on a quiet street. We weren't rich, we weren't poor either. We were just us. I worked a regular job in logistics. She stayed home with the kids most days. We cooked dinner together. We watched shows late at night when the kids were asleep. Sometimes we fought, sure, but who doesn't? It never felt like anything serious. I thought we were solid. Our weekends were always the same. Grocery runs on Saturday mornings, church sometimes on Sundays, kids' cartoons on the TV in the background. She liked to sit by the window and read. I used to look at her and think, man, I got lucky. She had this way of smiling when the kids did something silly, like she really loved being a mom. I used to catch myself just watching her, not in a creepy way, just grateful. She made our home feel warm. My best friend Mark would drop by now and then. We'd been friends since high school, one of those ride-or-die type friendships. We played football together, got into trouble together, even helped each other move apartments when we were broke and barely scraping by. He was part of the family. The kids called him Uncle Mark. My wife liked him. I thought it was cute how well they got along. I never worried. Life wasn't perfect, but it made sense. There was a rhythm to it. I'd wake up early, pack the kids' lunches, kiss her goodbye, head out the door, work, home, dinner, bedtime stories, rinse and repeat. Sometimes we'd talk about the future, maybe a family vacation, fixing up the backyard, getting a dog. I thought we were building something slowly, patiently, together. And if you had asked me back then if anything was wrong, I'd have said no, nothing at all. People don't just disappear. Not really. They give you signs, small ones. But the truth is, most of the time we don't want to see them. It started with her being quiet, quieter than usual. I'd ask how her day was and she'd say, fine. Just one word, no details, no stories about the kids, no complaints, just fine. Then she stopped asking about my day altogether. I didn't notice it at first. I mean, we were both tired. Life gets in the way. I figured it was just a phase. She'd spend more time on her phone. At night, when we used to cuddle and fall asleep watching some dumb show, she started going to bed early, said she had a headache or that she needed sleep. I didn't think much of it. We all get worn out. I thought maybe she was stressed. I told her to take some time for herself. Go out with friends, I said. Get your hair done. You deserve it. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't. That look stayed with me. Mark started coming around more often. He'd bring takeout sometimes, hang with the kids, help out with stuff around the house. He was always like a brother to me. So I didn't question it. I just thought, maybe he saw we were going through something and wanted to help. I even thanked him once, told him I appreciated him being there for us. She laughed at his jokes more than she laughed at mine. That one stung. I brushed it off. Told myself not to be insecure. We'd been married 9 years. You don't throw that away over a few laughs. Then came the distance. I'd reach out to hold her hand, and she'd pull away like she didn't notice. I kissed her cheek one morning and she barely reacted. No smile, no glance, like I wasn't even there. I asked if everything was okay. She paused, said, I just need some space. I nodded like I understood. Truth is, I didn't. Space from what? From me? From the kids? From the life we built? I started waking up earlier, lying in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, wondering when everything started to shift, trying to pinpoint the exact moment. But I couldn't. It's like watching a house crumble in slow motion and not knowing where the first crack was. I told myself it was just a rough patch, that she'd come around, that love was enough. But deep down, something didn't feel right. You never think it'll actually happen to you. You hear stories, someone's wife leaves, someone's husband cheats, best friends betray each other, but it's always someone else, until it's not. It was a Wednesday when she left. I remember because the kids had half day at school and I came home early to surprise everyone with pizza. But when I walked in, the house was too quiet. No cartoons, no laughter, no sound, just silence. There was a note on the kitchen table, folded once, my name written on the front. Lawrence, I need time to figure things out. Please don't try to find me. I'll be in touch soon. That was it. No explanation. No apology. No mention of the kids. I checked our closet. Half her clothes were gone. Her toothbrush was missing. Jewelry box empty. I opened the drawer where we kept important stuff. Passports, documents, bank books. Gone. All of it. I called her phone. Straight to voicemail. I called her mum. She hadn't heard anything. I called Mark. No answer. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch staring at the front door, waiting for it to open. I kept telling myself it was a mistake, that maybe she was just overwhelmed, that maybe she'd walk back in any minute and explain everything and say she just needed a break. I believed that until the next morning. I got a notification from the bank. Our joint account, emptied, all of it, every cent we'd saved. I logged in to be sure. There it was, a single withdrawal, cleared, gone. I still held on to hope. Maybe it was something else. Maybe she was robbed. Maybe she was running from something. Maybe... And then, 2 days later, I got a call from an old co-worker. "Hey man, didn't know you moved." "What?" "I ran into Mark, said you guys were settling down in a new city, that you left the job and were starting fresh. Said you and your wife wanted a clean break from everything." My heart dropped. I didn't know what to say. I hung up. I stared at the wall for what felt like hours. She left with him. She took our savings. She took our plans. And she didn't take the kids. She didn't take the kids. It's a strange thing, realizing your life changed without your permission. One day you're a husband, a father, a man with a plan, and the next you're just a guy standing in a kitchen trying to explain to 2 little kids why mommy isn't coming home. I didn't have the words. How do you tell a 6-year-old that the woman who tucked them in every night just vanished, that she chose someone else, that she left them behind? I said she needed a break. I said she was thinking. I said she loved them, over and over. I said it so many times I started to wonder if I even believed it. My daughter cried herself to sleep for a week. My son didn't say much. He just stopped asking questions. That silence was worse than the crying. I tried to keep things normal. Breakfast at 7, cartoons before school, homework in the afternoon. I packed their lunches, folded their clothes, learned how to braid hair from a YouTube video. Every night I put on a smile I didn't feel. I became 2 people, the dad they needed, and the man falling apart inside. I couldn't afford to break. Not with bills piling up. Not with debt I didn't even know we had until collectors started calling. She hadn't just taken our savings. She'd left behind credit cards in both our names, loans I didn't sign off on, and they didn't care where she went. They only saw my name on the papers. I went to work, came home, cleaned up messes, paid what I could, and tried to breathe through the rest. I'd lie awake at night doing math in my head. Rent, groceries, daycare, electricity. I was playing financial Tetris and losing every round. People started noticing at work, at school drop-offs, the looks, the pity, the "if you need anything, let me know" kind of sympathy. But no one really sticks around for the long part of someone else's pain. They mean well, but eventually they go back to their lives, and you're still there standing in the same mess. I tried reaching her. Once. Just once. Sent a message. Not angry. Just honest. "The kids miss you. They ask about you. If nothing else, please say something, for them." She never replied. Mark didn't either. I stared at my phone for days like it owed me something. A sign. An answer. Anything. But nothing came. Just more silence. More debt. More nights, sitting in the dark, wondering what the hell I did to deserve this. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who had to start over. Not like this. Not with 2 kids staring up at me every morning like I had all the answers, when most days, I didn't even know how I was going to make it to the next. There's a kind of loneliness that hits different when the house used to be full. I'd walk past her side of the bed and instinctively reach out like she was still there. I'd pour 2 cups of coffee out of habit. I'd hear a sound and think it was her coming through the door, but it never was. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the money. It was the silence. The kind of silence that creeps in at night when the kids are asleep and there's no one left to talk to, no one to vent to, no one to say, "We'll figure it out." Just me, sitting there, wondering when I stopped being enough. I stopped checking my phone, I stopped waiting. She wasn't coming back, he wasn't going to apologize, and no one was going to fix it for me. So I got up, I packed lunches, I walked my kids to school, I smiled at teachers and waved at neighbors like everything was fine. I told my boss I was fine, I told everyone I was fine, I wasn't. At night, I'd cry in the bathroom so the kids wouldn't hear. I didn't want them to worry. They had already lost enough. I couldn't let them lose me too. People assume heartbreak looks like rage, yelling, breaking things. But mine didn't. Mine looked like waking up at 5 a.m. to fold laundry. It looked like Googling cheap dinner recipes. It looked like scraping together coins from the couch to make sure there was enough for milk. It looked like showing up every day, even when every part of me wanted to stay in bed. That's what nobody tells you. When the world falls apart, there's no rescue team, there's just you and the pieces, and somehow you've got to pick them up. I thought about quitting more times than I can count, not just the job, everything, the whole thing. There were mornings I'd stare at the ceiling thinking, what's the point? She's gone, he's gone, the money's gone, and I'm left holding it all. 2 kids, a mountain of debt, no plan, no one to call, just me. But every time I thought about giving up, I'd hear them. My daughter humming while brushing her teeth, my son asking if I could walk him to school. Their little voices pulled me back over and over again. They didn't need a perfect dad. They just needed me to keep showing up. And that became the only thing I focused on, one day at a time, one decision at a time, even when I was tired, even when I was broke, even when I was angry. I started learning things I never cared to before. How to cook real meals, how to fix leaky faucets, how to braid hair without making it look like a bird's nest. I burned food. I made a mess of the bathroom sink. I messed up a science project and stayed up until midnight gluing it back together. But I kept going, and slowly the kids adjusted. They started laughing more. They started sleeping better. My daughter made a drawing of our family. It was just the 3 of us, holding hands. She said, "It's okay, Daddy, we're still a family." I hung that drawing on the fridge and stared at it every morning like it was a reminder. I still had bad days, still got calls from the bank, still found reminders of her in the drawers she didn't fully empty, her handwriting on old notes, her perfume on a scarf I forgot existed. But the difference now was, I didn't fall apart when I saw them. I just kept moving. I found small victories, paying off 1 credit card, getting through a week without crying, making the kids laugh until they had tears in their eyes. I held on to those moments like they were gold, because in a life that felt like it had been robbed of everything good, those little wins were everything. I stopped waiting for someone to fix it. I stopped wishing she'd call. I stopped hoping he'd regret it. I accepted the truth. They were gone. But I wasn't. I was still here. And somehow that had to be enough. You know what no one tells you? That healing doesn't feel like healing. Not at first. It feels like nothing. It feels like emptiness. Like you're just moving through the days without knowing if any of it even matters. But one morning I woke up and the first thing I felt wasn't pain. It wasn't anger. It was quiet, and not the kind of quiet that hurts. Just stillness. I got out of bed without dragging myself. I made coffee. I watched the sun rise through the kitchen window. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I still missed her. I probably always will. I missed who we used to be, who I thought we were. I missed the plans, the life, the version of me that existed before everything broke. But I stopped hoping she'd come back. I stopped playing the what-if game in my head. I let go of the idea that I needed closure to move forward. I started seeing things clearly, the way I used to ignore the signs, the way I used to explain them away. I wasn't stupid. I was just in love. And sometimes love makes you blind to things you don't want to believe. I realized I had spent so much time waiting for her to say sorry, waiting for Mark to admit what he did, waiting for someone to come fix the mess. But no one ever came. And the truth is, I didn't need them to. I had already survived the worst part. My kids were laughing again, they were healing in their own way. We had our routines, our little traditions, pancakes on Saturdays, movie nights on Fridays, and somewhere in all of that, I found a rhythm. A new one. Not the life I planned, but the life I had. And I was still here, still standing, still fighting. I wasn't trying to forget the past anymore. I was learning how to live without it. The first time I laughed again, really laughed, it caught me off guard. It was something small. My son told a joke, one of those silly ones that doesn't make sense but kids think is hilarious, and for some reason I couldn't stop laughing. I laughed so hard I had to sit down, and he just looked at me like he'd won something. My daughter joined in. We laughed until our stomachs hurt, and that's when I realized something. I hadn't been living, I'd just been surviving, getting through the days, checking boxes, but that moment, that was life, that was real. I started noticing other moments like that. The way my daughter held my hand a little tighter when we crossed the street. The way my son waited by the door every day after school just to tell me about his day. They weren't just moving on, they were adapting. They were teaching me how to adapt too. There were still hard days, still letters from debt collectors, still nights when the loneliness crept in. But it wasn't consuming me like it used to. I had learned how to breathe through it, how to let it pass without letting it define me. I started talking to people more, not just the quick, polite small talk, real conversations, other single parents, strangers at the park. I found out I wasn't the only one who got blindsided. I wasn't the only one left to pick up pieces I didn't break. And there was comfort in that, not because misery loves company, but because healing does. I stopped trying to be the man I was before. He didn't exist anymore. That version of me, the husband, the friend, the guy who thought he had it all figured out, he was gone. And that was okay, because this new version, he was stronger. Not because he wanted to be, but because he had to be. Every day I did what I could. Some days that just meant getting out of bed. Other days it meant teaching my kids how to ride bikes or cooking something new that actually turned out okay. I still had doubts, still had fears, but I wasn't stuck anymore. I was learning how to live in the after. And for the first time, I believed there could be something good on the other side of all this. I never thought I'd thank the pain. I never thought I'd look back at the worst year of my life and feel something other than regret. But here I am, not the same man who got left behind, not the one who used to wonder if he'd ever be whole again. Something shifted, quietly, slowly, like a bruise fading without you noticing. It didn't come all at once. There wasn't a moment where I stood up and said, I'm healed. No speech, no revelation. It was just small things, a steady paycheck, an evening where the bills were paid and the fridge was full, a dinner where we laughed more than we ate, my son calling me his hero, my daughter saying, "You're doing great, Dad," and really meaning it. I started to believe it too. I didn't need anyone to come back. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need answers. I had something better. I had peace. The kind that isn't loud. The kind that shows up when the house is quiet and your heart isn't racing anymore. When you can sit in your own silence and feel okay. I still think about her sometimes. Not with anger, not with longing, just curiosity. Like a chapter from an old book. A life that happened. A story that ran its course. She made a choice. So did he, and so did I. I chose to stay, to show up, to fight for my kids, to rebuild from nothing, to find myself in the ruins of what used to be us. And somehow, that became more than enough. This isn't the life I wanted, but it's the life I have. And it's starting to feel like mine. I learned something important along the way. That strength doesn't mean never breaking. It doesn't mean having all the answers or pretending everything's fine. Real strength is letting yourself feel the pain and still choosing to move forward. It's showing up even when you're scared, even when you don't believe you can. There were moments I wanted to give up. Moments when the weight of everything pressed down so hard I thought I'd crumble. But then I'd see my kids, their faces full of trust and hope, and something inside me would light up. A small spark. A reminder that I wasn't just living for myself anymore. I was living for them. I started setting goals. Not big, impossible ones. Small steps. Paying down debt little by little. Fixing things around the house, taking the kids to the park, making sure they knew they were loved no matter what had happened. I reached out for help. I admitted I couldn't do it all alone, and I found people who listened, people who understood, people who didn't judge. The hardest part was forgiving myself for not seeing the signs, for trusting the wrong people, for feeling like I failed. But forgiveness was the key, because without it I was still stuck in the past, still holding on to pain that kept me from moving forward. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone who's been through hell and came out the other side. Not perfect, not unbroken, but stronger, wiser, ready for whatever comes next. This story isn't just about loss, it's about what happens after, about resilience, about hope, about the unexpected strength we find when everything else falls apart. And that's the story I want to tell. Sometimes, the hardest battles aren't the ones other people see. They're the quiet ones we fight inside, in the moments no one is watching. When the kids are asleep and the house is still, when the silence presses in and your mind races with all the what-ifs and whys. I used to think I had to be tough all the time, to hide the cracks, to keep my face steady so no one worried. But that kind of strength, it's not real. Real strength is letting yourself be vulnerable. It's crying when you need to. It's asking for help when you're drowning. It's admitting you're scared even if you don't want to be. I remember one night sitting on the floor of the kitchen, just after the kids went to bed. I had a bottle of water in my hand, but no idea if I'd drunk any of it. I felt like I was fading, like I was disappearing right there in that quiet room. And in that moment I let myself break. I cried, not just for what was lost, but for what I still hoped for the life I wanted to build for my kids, for the man I wanted to be. That night was a turning point, because after the tears I felt lighter, not healed, not fixed, but lighter. Like a weight I hadn't known I was carrying was finally lifting, even if just a little. I started talking about it, not just with friends or family, but with myself. I wrote down my thoughts, my fears, my hopes, and slowly, piece by piece, I built a new foundation, one where pain was part of the story, but not the whole story, one where I could be broken and strong at the same time. Life didn't suddenly become easy. The bills still came, the loneliness still showed up, but I was no longer afraid of those moments. I faced them head on, knowing that they didn't define me. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was starting to live again. And that made all the difference. I used to think that if I just worked harder, if I just kept pushing, everything would go back to the way it was. But life doesn't work like that. You can't rewind time or erase the past. You have to keep moving forward, even when the future feels uncertain. I learned to find joy in the small things, the sound of my kids laughing, the warmth of the sun on my face, the quiet moments after bedtime when I could finally breathe. Those little things became my lifeline. They reminded me that even after everything, life was still worth living. There were days when I still felt the weight of it all. The loneliness, the loss, the anger, but I didn't let those feelings take over. Instead, I let them teach me something. About resilience, about hope, about what it means to be human. I started dreaming again. Not big dreams at first, just small hopes, a better job, a safer home, a future where my kids could grow up feeling loved and secure. And with each small step, those dreams started to feel possible. I found new strength in being vulnerable, in asking for help, in admitting that I couldn't do it all alone. That didn't make me weak, it made me real. And slowly, day by day, I rebuilt my life. Not the life I planned, but a new life. One filled with challenges, yes, but also with love, laughter, and hope. This is my story. Not just of loss, but of finding myself again. Of learning that even when everything falls apart, you can still build something new, something better, something that's yours. There's a moment when you realize you're no longer the person you were. When the pain that once felt unbearable has softened just enough that you can breathe again. It doesn't happen all at once. It sneaks up on you in quiet ways. A smile when you didn't expect it, a memory that no longer hurts, a new routine that feels like home. I remember looking at my kids one morning, brushing their hair, packing their lunches, and feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not sadness, not anger, but hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better, that the future didn't have to be defined by the past. It's strange how life works, how loss can teach you about strength, how betrayal can show you what really matters, how brokenness can lead to growth. I started making plans again, small ones at first. A trip to the park, a weekend visit with friends, then bigger ones, going back to school, changing jobs, saving money, things I thought were impossible before, but now they felt like steps towards something new. I wasn't perfect. I made mistakes. I stumbled. Sometimes I wanted to give up, but every time I remembered why I had to keep going. For my kids, for myself, for the life waiting to be built from the pieces. This chapter isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about learning to live with it, to grow from it, to become someone stronger, wiser, and more alive than before. And that's what I'm doing now, step by step, day by day, moving forward, because that's the only way. I never expected forgiveness to come so quietly, not with a bang or a grand moment, but like a slow sunrise that warms everything without you noticing right away. For a long time, I carried anger like armor. It protected me, made me feel strong, but it also weighed me down. There were days I wanted to shout at the sky, to demand answers, to make them feel the pain they caused. But I realized that holding on to that anger only trapped me in the past. It kept me chained to the moment when everything fell apart. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean excusing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It meant letting go of the grip that pain had on me. It meant freeing myself so I could finally move on. It took time, more time than I wanted to admit, but little by little I found myself feeling lighter. The anger started to fade, the bitterness loosened its hold, and in its place grew something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. I forgave them, not for their sake but for mine, so I could stop carrying the weight of their choices, so I could focus on what mattered: the kids, the future, the man I wanted to become. Forgiveness became my way forward, a step toward healing, a way to reclaim my life from the wreckage. And that was the beginning of something new, something better, something whole. I never imagined I'd be standing here now, telling this story. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that life doesn't wait for us to be ready. It moves forward, with or without us. And sometimes it forces us to become someone we never thought we could be. There were moments when I doubted everything, my strength, my worth, my ability to keep going. But through those doubts, something else grew. A stubborn hope. The kind that whispers even when the world screams otherwise. The kind that says, "You can do this." I started looking ahead instead of behind. I made new plans, not just for survival but for living, for happiness, for a future where my kids could thrive and where I could find peace. It wasn't easy. It still isn't. But every step forward, no matter how small, felt like a victory. Every smile from my kids, every good night's sleep, every paycheck that covered the bills, these were the milestones that marked my journey. I'm not the man I used to be. I'm someone new, someone stronger because of what I endured. Someone who knows that even when life breaks you down, you can still rise, you can still rebuild. And that's what I'm doing now. Building a life from the pieces, one day at a time. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but mine. And for the first time in a long time, that feels enough. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from facing the worst and still choosing to believe in better. It's not flashy or loud. It doesn't demand attention. But it's there, steady and real, like the steady beat of your heart reminding you to keep going. I never thought I'd find myself here, still standing after everything that happened. After the betrayal, the loss, the nights when I wondered if I could keep going. But here I am. Not because I'm invincible, but because I learned how to be gentle with myself, how to accept that healing isn't a straight line, that some days are harder than others, and that's okay. I found new meaning in the little things. A hug from my daughter when she doesn't want to let go. A quiet moment with my son before bedtime. The way the morning light fills our home. These moments don't erase the past, but they remind me there's still good in the world, still hope. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what the future holds. But I do know this. I'm not alone. My kids are with me, growing, learning, laughing. And together we're building something new. I'm learning to trust again. In myself. In the future. In the possibility that life can be better than what we lost. This story isn't just about pain. It's about resilience, about hope, about finding your way when the path seems impossible to see. And that's what I hold on to, every single day. This is the end of my story. Thank you for watching, and if you like this kind of content, kindly leave us a like, share the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thank you.